She can be very abusive with her coworkers, as we've learned. There's an excellent book by Ronald Kessler called First Family Detail, and there's a very interesting anecdote there where a uniformed Secret Service member says, "Good morning, ma'am," and she replies to the uniformed Secret Service officer, "F off." And there are numerous examples of her abusing her workers at the White House when she was First Lady. She'd walk down the hall and people were told, "Don't make eye contact with the First Lady." Some people actually hid behind curtains when she went by. And this represents an elitism, a sense of self-importance, and superiority that I think are all very dangerous.
National Review contributing editor DeRoy Murdoch detailing Hillary Clinton's behavior and interaction, or lack thereof, with Secret Service officers while serving as First Lady and in later government roles, detailing her use of bad language and her sense of superiority that DeRoy says is very dangerous. Well, let's welcome in a man who certainly has covered all of this. In fact, his book was just referred to by DeRoy Murdoch. He's our old friend, author Ron Kessler, joining us via Skype, the author of that aforementioned book, The First Family Detail. Secret Service agents revealed the hidden lives of the presidents. Ronald, as always, we appreciate your time on Newsmax Prime. Really, take us back. If a uniformed Secret Service agent had the temerity to say, "Good morning, Mrs. Clinton," she would respond how?
Well, with a swear word beginning with F. And this was a daily occurrence and still is with her Secret Service agents. She seems to derive pleasure from making other people's lives miserable if they're less powerful than she is. These are the same so-called little people that she claims she's going to champion if she's president. And this reveals her real character. Actually, being assigned to her detail is considered a form of punishment within the Secret Service. And my book, The First Family Detail, is totally nonpartisan. It says that Barack Obama does treat his agents with respect. Donald Trump also treats his agents with respect. I asked him a few months ago at Mar-a-Lago, how do you like being protected by the Secret Service? And he said, "It's great. I'll have 20 agents around me on the golf course, and they're all looking in different directions, and they don't see if I miss the ball." With Hillary, it's almost pathological. As DeRoy Murdoch said, quoting my book, she will actually tell agents that she doesn't want to see them. They have to hide behind curtains or duck into other offices so that she doesn't see them. Also in the White House, she didn't want to have military officers wear uniforms. They had to dress in civilian clothes. She didn't want to have police in uniforms at her events. Just has a really hostile attitude towards anybody that is not as powerful as she is.
You know, you mentioned all that, and of course she continued to get Secret Service protection when she was the senator from New York, and I was a United States congressman from Arizona. Happened to be on the Senate side one afternoon, and there was Hillary surrounded by 4 agents, and she wasn't upbraiding them, but boy, there seemed to be, and I know for protection, they want to be out around her, but it was just the strangest sensation. And again, what kind of reaction have you gotten from those agents who've been assigned to the detail? How genuine is their feeling of punishment? And her demeanor overall, what does that do to the morale of those charged with protecting her?
Well, you know, it couldn't be worse than being considered a form of punishment to be assigned to her detail. And many say they would retire rather than protect her when she's in the White House. But she is being protected now. And it's just incredible. These are brave, dedicated agents who would give their lives for her because they're professionals. But yet she treats them like dirt. You know, you would not hire someone like that at a McDonald's, someone who treats other people in such a shoddy manner, and yet she's running for president. It tells you so much about this woman and what she's really like.
It is so far from the term public servant, it seems light years away from the concept, and certainly is a very frightening prospect for one who wants to be our leader. Now, Ron, you have known Donald Trump for over 2 decades. You've written about him extensively, interviewed Mr. Trump and his people along the way. There has been so much coverage of this audio tape from 11 years ago. Mr. Trump calls it locker room language. What can you tell us from a personal perspective about Mr. Trump and what he refers to as that locker room language?
Glad to. When I first met with Donald, we were going down to Palm Beach on his plane with my wife, Pam, who's a former Washington Post reporter. And he said to Pam, I'm going to make a prediction. Your husband is going to screw me in this book. Now I wouldn't mind. Well, it was a totally benign comment. Pam thought it was funny. I put it in my book called The Season Inside Palm Beach and America's Richest Society. But that is sort of typical Donald Trump, totally benign. I interviewed Norma Forder, who was his top aide for 26 years and was his gatekeeper. And she told me how Donald came and told her about meeting Melania at a party. She's so beautiful, and she's a brunette, not a blonde. And Norma said these women were constantly after him, and were shameless. I mean, basically jumping into bed with him. And she would have to field these calls, and she said they had no shame. So the women were generally the aggressors. And if you look at that audio or video, you see that he's saying, when you're a star, you can do anything, implying, I think, that he had their consent to do what he felt like doing. I'm not, condoning everything on the tape, but it's not much worse than Chris Matthews lusting over Melania in a hot mic moment that's now on the internet. Some of the sexual banter between Megyn Kelly and Howard Stern on Howard Stern's show is pretty raunchy. Nobody, would want to have their private conversations made public, no matter what the subject is, in general. And so that's some of the context. So basically, Donald was like Elvis or like the Beatles, constantly pursued by very aggressive women. As Norma said, they had no shame. And that's, I think, the context of what you saw on that audio.
And what's curious about this, we're in a post-Bill Clinton age in terms of American politics, and yet the irony is that the Clintons, of all people, and their cheerleaders in the press almost act as if we're going back to Nathaniel Hawthorne's Scarlet Letter when it comes to Donald Trump. The double standard, again, it's not to excuse the language, but in the context of what's going on, it would seem to me editorial judgment would compel us to look at national security and personal conduct in other areas, but perhaps sex sells. And this I want to get to. The whole point.
There's no question about the bias. Just the fact that Chris Matthews was caught lusting after Melania is something that you never see in the mainstream media, and tells you so much about the double standard that we see. David Brooks in the New York Times just had a column saying that Donald is sad and lonely. He has no friends. That is so absurd. He does work most of the time, but he has hundreds of friends from Mar-a-Lago, from his golf clubs, from the media, and I consider myself one of them. He considers me one of them. It's just a pathetic display of media bias.
So we have gone through the information about Mrs. Clinton's past with the Secret Service. We've talked about Donald Trump and his relationship with members of the opposite sex. Here is the question, Ron. Since you have covered the Secret Service, who do you believe agents would prefer protecting as the next president of the United States? Got about 45 seconds here.
Right. Well, there's no question they would prefer Donald Trump. As I said, he treats them with respect, with consideration. He appreciates their service and their sacrifice, that they would actually take a bullet for him, as opposed to Hillary, who just seems to enjoy making their lives miserable. I mean, what kind of person is like that? It's a pathological sickness that indicates that she derives pleasure from lording it over other people who cannot do anything about it, and who are less powerful than she is. Such a good tip-off to her character. You know, we saw it with Richard Nixon. He became involved in the ethics episode known as Checkers. And sure enough, we got Watergate. Well, if we don't pay attention to these clues to character, we're going to be in for much worse, because once someone gets in the White House, they become even more arrogant if they're already arrogant. And Hillary is the best example of an arrogant individual that you would not even want to hire at McDonald's.
Ronald Kessler, we always appreciate your labors, sir, with all the books you've written, including the book First Family Detail. Secret Service agents revealed the hidden lives of the presidents. Ron, we thank you very much. Still to come, William F. Buckley was the face and voice of American conservatism for decades. What do you think Bill Buckley would think of today's political environment? Author Heather Hendershot has written a new book. She'll talk about it with us next as Newsmax Prime continues.